your comments and showing up tonight and being involved and present. We appreciate it, and we value your input most definitely. All right. So that completes item 15, which was moved ahead of item 14. So now we'll go ahead and receive an update on Bass Lake Regional Park Project Executive Summary and Presentation.
Good evening, Jeff Kern, Interim Principal Planner. This is an item mainly for a presentation on the status and some updates of items that have advanced in the last couple months that we've been working on with our consultant and staff. There's an accompanying staff report summarizing some of these items. I won't be summarizing that right now. The presentation is going to speak for itself. So that being said, though, if any questions come up, I'll be available to answer questions. If it's more design related and decision like that, our Paul from Stantec is here to give that presentation. So hope you like some of the information, and Paul from Stantec.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Good evening, board and the community who's here. So we'll stay on the park theme. I think Brittany or someone's gonna pull it up. Okay. So what we want to do tonight is give you an update where we're at on Bass Lake Regional Park. Obviously a super important project to you, and we've all been working hard to advance it. And I want to go over with you kind of where we're at and take any questions. All right, so this is existing master plan that you've worked really hard on, and obviously has a lot of fields and great programming and natural features. And it's spectacular. And so what we've been doing on this recent task is to just validate the master plan, get into it in more detail, come up with some ideas or improvements that might be done, give it another eye, look at the engineering aspects of it. So, but overall, we want to preserve the program and all the work you did to create it. And those circles there are the kind of the three areas we kind of looked at for some improvements. So this is the west side of the park that primarily has all the programming. And this is where we looked at it as a team and really looked at, ways to improve it. And the biggest item that we came up with was the parks. So in the previous master plan, there was a venture here, there was a sensory over here, and then over by the ball field close to the parking lot, there was another playground. And just talking together as a team, we really want to consolidate all those play areas into one, just so you can manage them, you can supervise your children, they're close to restroom, you're not crossing streets, and make it a more safer environment. So what we did was we took this road here that went straight, and we did a parking analysis, and we took it and we bent it down, and we kind of centered it up with the parking lot, which freed up this space here. And then we end up rotating the field to a north-south orientation that even freed up more space. So what this did is provided approximately, over an acre space where we can program the sensory garden, the adventure area, the all-inclusive play, the picnic areas buffered from the parking lot. You have an entrance here where all can be controlled and safe. So that was a big adjustment that we did. We did some minor, tweaks with the parking lot and rotate it for grading purposes. We did look at some cost saving measures, like how can we reduce costs and try to save some money. So we had this loop road that came around before, and the way we kind of engineered it is, and with our traffic engineer, we just kept this one road here, and off Bass Lake Road, we have to come down to these existing EID facilities. And those are a challenge because we can't raise them, lift them, they're there, and we have to come down to them. So the grade from here to down here is like 25 feet. So it's pretty challenging. So then we were able to grade as such, we can come down here, access the EID facilities this way, and they can come in, park, come out, and eliminate this whole road.
Nice.
So what that does, we save some oak trees, we save costs on the roads, we would still have a walkway that would come through a loop pathway. But again, we want to try to preserve the natural environment, less hardscape, keep the natural features as much as possible and save the oak trees. The dog park was generally fine. We didn't really, adjust that. These fields, we just shifted around to try to get away from the dam edge. We did have some challenges with the volleyball courts because they were kind of in pairs and they were kind of in the play area. I mean, in the field, there were 2 in the field and 2 tucked away in the oak trees that took out some oaks. And there would have to be some retaining walls around the volleyball courts, which wouldn't be safe to dive or to play. So we were talking to staff is let's try to find another home. It's always better if you can get like a 4-plex volleyball together versus a 2 somewhere and a 2 somewhere else. And this site is really heavily programmed and there's a lot of grading that's happening. So we actually had to, take these out over here because just they weren't safe and they were taking out a lot of oaks. And then the one right here is right in the middle of a field that didn't make a lot of sense. Other than that, the program stayed the same. We just kind of modified and improved it. The community building over here, just in the master plan.
So quick question, in the know your audience, the bullet of remove volleyball. Did you just know that I'm not running or was that just a mistake?
Well, that's a question we pose for staff is, can we find another home for them that makes more sense? And where is there at this side or another park? So that's something that's we're working on. But
I'm out, you're good.
all right. But open for suggestions for sure. Let's see. So the community building here, we just shifted up the hill. The master plan had it in a flood zone. So obviously we had to pull it back and get it into, we have to reconfigure the parking lot. But that was just a minor adjustment. All right, on the east side. So over here, the original master plan had the nature center building kind of right off the parking lot. And we always, thought about, we want to make it a little bit more of experience, sense of place, sense of arrival to the building. So we want to pull it off to the parking lot where you would walk to it and kind of couple it with the amphitheater. So if you do have an event or children, you can spill out, have indoor, outdoor connections and make it more of a multi-purpose kind of space. And then we're talking with staff, thinking about a possible caretaker building in the future. So possibly a 2-bedroom, 1-bath little structure that would help oversee the site. And we talked about possible locations for that. So we did 3 options, one in the north side, one on the south, and then one kind of a little more by the pond. So none of that's really been decided. It's just things that we're studying. And also, pushing back the parking lot a little bit. There's some sensitive areas off to the side of the seasonal pond. Okay, so once we got the site plan set, we want to look at the grading. So we know, there's a lot of topography out there and how's this really all going to work? I know in the original master plan, the intent was to keep this one field. So we started there and okay, so if we kept the field and grade out the site, what would it look like? Essentially, just the way it's so tight, this area here is one big super pad, is one big flat area, call it 1.5%. So you don't have that much room to play with. You can't really adjust the grade. So when we did the analysis to leave this field, existing grade, this is one big flat area. It was we're at 130,000 cubic yards of fill. So that's a massive amount of fill. It'd be really expensive. So then we looked at other alternatives and did some other concepts. What if we lower this field? So if we lower this field and cut, that would generate fill and we can use it for over here. So right now we're looking at dropping this field about 5-6 feet to help offset some of the cut fill. It probably won't balance, totally, but it's going to significantly help. Right now, Geotech's out there doing some test pits on the site to see where the rock is, and see how deep we go. If we want to go, 6-7 feet and we hit rock at 2, we may give it another look. But we're looking at the ideal situation and see what we come up with. But you can kind of see the more slopes are kind of on the edges. The EID might have little walls, but this is a little slope here, slope on the edges. We want to try to minimize retaining walls because those are expensive as much as possible, but try to grade it out as much as we can. Now for the architecture. So we worked really closely with staff on the architecture and the programming of the buildings, what's really in them, how big, how are they going to be used, which is really important. So we started off just looking at just the region. We call it the regional craft. What are we going to, what's our inspiration in the region? You got the oak trees and the great rock outcroppings. Obviously you have the lake and the meadows and the natural, environment. Looked at the materials of the building, what it could be, the colors, finishes, transparency. And we did some quick massing studies. This is looking out from the lake, kind of looking back towards the road. But, what does a one-story building look like? And these are the trees right there. What does a two-story look like? Far as, presence as a blend in the environment, just get a sense of scale of this building. And just with talking with staff, we're kind of leaning towards, the one-story building. It just blends into the scale of the trees. It's not overly dominant. And also too, it's going to be easier to construct. Your foundations are going to be smaller. You can have nice big truss like this building here, open ceilings with trusses. You won't have to deal with an elevator and maintenance, ADA access in a two-story building. So some of the program elements we came up with was, so for the event center, just in the master plan, I think it was just more of a placeholder, but it was like 8,500 square feet. We went through analysis with staff and we came up with about 13,000 square feet. So what that's composed of is 2 ballrooms, 2 meeting rooms, classrooms, breakout rooms, warming kitchen, restroom, storage, a viewing deck. And obviously the ballrooms can be partitioned, so they could be one big one or you could break them up. So it's really multi-purpose. The nature center, originally it was about 2,500 square feet envisioned. After we went through, it's maybe like 5,200 square feet. So that would include a reception area, 2 classrooms, a couple labs, science center, conference room, warming kitchen, storage, restroom. And that'll be connected to the outdoor amphitheater. So that'd be a connection there. And the caretaker house, we're looking at, around 1,500 square feet for a 2-bedroom, living room and a bathroom facility. And this is just a little detail breakdown. I won't go into it in general, but it's in the presentation on how we came up with the square footage and what the assignments are to each of the spaces. And then same with the event center. And we have in there, approximately how many square feet per each and grossing factors. And then we spent a lot of time with staff going over precedent images. What's the character of the building? What's the style? What's it going to look like? So these are just some inspirational image that we'll kind of pull from as we advance. The elevations. So right now we're just in the conceptual phases, just trying to understand where we're going. And then we're going to take the feedback and then start building the elevations of the buildings. But so a lot of feedback from staff was, natural, materials, something that would blend in, very simple roof lines. You know, a lot of glass, transparency, overhangs. And this is what I was talking about with the one-story building. You know, you can have, you know, big open air spaces, truss systems, you know, big glass vaulted areas, or even at the ends, you know, you can have glass looking out to the lake, the way it's, you know, depends how you position it and lay it out. We also looked at possible modular option. Staff want us to, you know, what if we did a modular and not a custom? So this is a modular building that's been, you know, obviously enhanced on the exterior. This is just a one story. And obviously those you can customize to a point, and otherwise if you go too far, then you might as well just build it, but as an option, so you can see. And these are just some inspirational images staff gave us, just kind of what the CSD has been thinking as far as, you know, the informal natural amphitheater for events, outdoor lighting, event spaces, education, and some, you know, building architecture facades. And I'll open up for questions. That's where we're at. I guess I can summarize too where we're at in the process. So right now, we're looking to just, this is a good milestone where you got everything pretty well settled out. And we want to get final feedback so we can kind of wrap up our package and finalize the architecture elevations, finalize the master plan. We're going to go into costing. We haven't done any costing yet because we want to understand where we're going first. And then do that, and then we'll put the planning application together and then be complete, and then work on environmental documents.
Very good. Thank you for that presentation and update. Looks like it's moving forward, moving along, and
Yeah,
it's great to see. You know, so thank you for that update. Does any of the board members have any questions, clarifications?
I've got a bunch.
Comments?
Shocker, as I'm going out in blaze of glory. Can you go back to the overall project drawing? Because
Yeah.
I saw like one parking space for every human in El Dorado Hills.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, so we did a parking analysis based on the county's guidelines. So
So if I look at like maximum play on all of those fields,
Mhm.
I was, can you flip back to that?
Yeah, yeah.
There was a ton of parking. Right? So I've got that main lot, then I've got the other lot on the,
So you got that one.
and I've got the third. Yeah, sorry. I mean, that looks super redundant or overkill. What's the
So,
county telling us?
Yeah, so we took out about 50 stalls and
We
we're,
took out? And we still have that?
yeah. And so once we did our analysis, so we're close, we're probably over maybe 20 something stalls, 30 stalls. But we always err on the higher side because we know once we have utilities put in, you know, once you do the grading, you're going to lose something somewhere. So we don't want to make it so tight that we don't have any flexibility, fire hydrants and whatnot.
Yeah, 20 stalls is a couple of volleyball courts.
Director Han,
But
Director
yeah.
Hanson, is that what you're getting more at, you know, what's the basis for
squeeze
the
it in.
quantity? There's standards that you went off of, right?
Yeah, it's basically off of usable space. So it's not the pathways, it's not the oak trees, it's just fields.
right, but I can't program those two baseball fields and softball fields at the same time I'm playing soccer. Right, because
Right,
there's
right.
overlap.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah, that's right.
think that your numbers is based on maximum programming. That's impossible to hit. As though we were playing all sports at all times with multiple teams on each field.
Yeah, there is a lot of overlap on the fields, the way they're designed now.
All right,
They're
so
more multi.
that wasn't an answer. What's the number?
You'll double check the quantities on that.
The park, sure.
The parking isn't based on programmable fields. It's the actual field space, not overlapped, not double counted.
Oh.
I think that, does that help?
Not the field count, but
It would say like
It's
two baseball
correct.
fields plus two soccer fields. It's the
Yeah.
amount of space
It's
those
a-
fields take up, period. Yeah.
Correct. So it's not per field, it's per square footage of field. So
That's
this,
it's more parking than Promontory has.
well, yeah.
And it's not more programmable than Promontory.
Yeah, but there'll also be a lot of others doing other types of activities. So while you're out there, though, right? I mean, not just playing ball and
yeah, so. a
Yeah, at
dog
maximum
park,
use, sorry.
Yeah.
Let's say you do have a tournament, you have turnover. So you have the people who are there, the people who are coming in for the next game. It's not like the people who are there just poof, disappear and then the new people show up. So there's a turnover quantity.
Thanks, Kevin.
That's
That's insightful.
You're asking the question.
Yeah, you have too much parking. You killed volleyball courts and you have too much parking. So that's number one. And you have parking down there near that outdoor facility. That is an absolute waste of public money as Mansour's family is developing that property off of Bass Lake. It's gonna be about 2 miles down. We don't need that. I know it was in the original plan. I know it's where other people have been big advocates of that, but that should be a future phase, 10, 15 years out. And I really wish we had Mansour's project side by side because we have private sector funding coming in to build a fantastic facility 2, maybe 3 miles down the road from that. Is that correct, Kevin?
You mean Mohana?
Mohana, I'm sorry, I said Mansour. You're right. Thanks for clarification.
Yeah, he's got an application and I think a TAC meeting upcoming.
Yeah, it's an early phase. That is on Monday.
Does he still have a event center?
Hotel Event Center.
So answer yes.
I mean, if it gets approved, it's a glorious looking project. I'm sorry, I misspoke his name, but it's gonna be what, 3 miles max?
Max.
Probably closer to 2.
It's close.
I'd encourage future board to put that sucker 10 years down. And then the last one, where's John's roundabout?
That is not up for us to decide at this point.
When we're wasting our time on that ingress
On the other side.
on the other side. You know, Supervisor Heidel is going to mandate that a roundabout goes there. This is not a surprise. Maybe if it is, that should be in the plan. Otherwise, the county won't approve this project.
We started it to be ready for them, but want to put a roundabout in ours on their right of way because it would lead to us potentially having to pay for it. And that's considered.
Good point.
We're going to do where they direct us to, and we studied it, so that's why we still need 2 alternatives.
All right, so I mean, short answer is they're gonna make us put a roundabout there. And there's state funding for roundabouts. So, I mean, it could be give and take, but great point of if it's in our plan, they want us to pay for it.
Right. I'm sure we'll have some piece of that pie if it eventually happens, but the smaller piece, the better.
Yeah.
Paul, can you go back to that black and white
Sure.
one? Yeah. So the 1 acre that you just can that be volleyball courts? What is that gonna be? Just natural open space?
Isn't that the playground?
Yeah, it's, so I guess okay,
Trying to help.
so the.
Oh, I'm not worried about it. I think that we have tons of areas in El Dorado Hills where we can have competition level volleyball courts, right? Like even with soccer going south of 50 is where those should go. I was just giving a hard time, like, know your audience. You cut volleyball and
Yeah,
But
well,
what is
yeah,
that space right now?
this is the sensory garden, this is inclusive
said that.
play area.
Yes.
this
Yeah.
is
I remember you saying
Picnic,
that. Okay, thank you.
restroom, so that's kind of the kids' play zone right there. So we consolidated
I
that
just-
one on that one.
where I have heartburn, Heidi, like thinking back on that I have more parking lots
I see.
than I have playable area. That's my heartburn.
Yeah.
At the application phase, and talking to the county staff, I'm sure we'd be open to reducing that parking, but based upon their requirements, that's what's built in at this point.
Oh, yeah, I forgot the fourth one down there by that
Right.
facility.
And the other side.
All right.
So if
Super
I
parking.
hear you correctly,
We don't
well,
have
I
that
do
much
hear you,
parking
it's
here.
ask for, oh, the county to back off of their requirements. We can ask them.
Do we even have that much parking here?
Give me the ratio.
Stalls. I'm looking at lines.
Ah,
Most likely
me off guard.
not.
I
I
don't have
think
the
there's
count.
about, is there around 350 to 400 in this 3 parking lots?
Oh, and I think total it's about, I think it was like almost 480 or something.
Yeah,
Cause you got all the way up there.
Yeah,
It's, and they've told us if we build another building here, we have to add a whole bunch more parking.
not surprised.
I mean, a building, we build on this
Push back On
spot.
that, man. We don't need that much parking up there.
oh, I'm a strong opponent of parking, so whatever we can get, we will.
We'll ask.
You're a strong proponent of parking or?
Opponent.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
I like parking maximums, not minimums.
Yeah, nice. This is gonna be a fantastic project once in a
Yeah.
lifetime.
So we answered that one, the sensory garden play area, the big play area. You talked about where it was originally, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So previously there was one player right in between the two fields. It was kind of close to the parking lot, and then you had the little adventure play that was really kind of small, just kind of tucked in here. And grading wise, this is a big slope now. Was right here, and you'd have to cross the street, and the sensory garden was right here. So they were kind of triangulated. And we just dipped it down and consolidated it.
That's a great idea. I mean, like thinking of promontory, right? As my kids have played at both parks and in different ages, like one's over in the little one, one's over at the other one. Consolidating them makes a lot more sense.
Closer to the ball field. So if you're a parent, you can kind of manage
Yeah.
kids over here, kids over there. I think we've all had to do it.
Yeah, right, Andrew? One spot.
Yeah, we still try to keep it close to the ball fields, so if you are doing, watching a ball game here and you have little children playing, you can still do both. Try to keep it as close to the original intent as we could.
Yeah. I just want that back. County and parking, get that back for. That'd be my house.
And something for the board to know. I mean, we talked about money earlier, 45 million, 100 million cost, all that stuff.
Yeah.
There is another 3.5 million that's not on the books. That's in the 1992-1 CFD funds for a park. Sean and Mike probably remember because we had to get into that whole debacle over getting the J Lot H property. The J Lot H property is roughly where Sean was just pointing. So I say 3.5, it's supposed to be no less than 3.5 million available for building on just. I can
See the line
Yes.
on there.
Right up
kind of
there.
where this white line is
Yeah.
over here, which doing it egress, ingress here, and whatever we do here, we'll eat it up. Nothing's cheap in public works. So,
Is there an expiration time on that money?
I'll have to go back and look. I don't remember us having an expiration on that, but there was an attempt to put an expiration on it.
Yeah.
If you remember that one, then there was like a reversionary as well.
Yeah.
Right, we had to fight on that one.
Yeah.
Just to get land that was owed on the old Serrano plan.
Because they're brilliant.
Yeah.
So I don't know, are we gonna take any comment on this? Cause if any of the sports folks want to weigh in, I know Roland's here, he might have something he wants
guys-
to throw out. I
I
don't know if
think you
you're, are you
totally
gonna?
Could and should. It's not an action item. You're
Yeah, just
trying to
share
get input so you know where to give further direction from here as we go along. We still have
Right.
time. It's such a huge project. So yeah, if the president wants to open it up to public comment.
It's an agendized item, it should help.
Yeah, I'm completely up for that. I'd love to hear more about what people have to say about it, what their vision would be, what they'd like to see, what maybe can be done a little bit differently or,
Is there any?
So if there's anyone here that would like to speak,
We have someone here in the audience who would like to approach
Okay,
the podium.
Hi, I'm Marilyn with El Dorado Hills Lacrosse. This is my first peek at this, so pardon me if these questions have been asked already. One, are the fields lighted? And are they approved by the surrounding homes? Are we going to get rejection once we put the lights up and have another issue? Is my first question. Second is baseball and lacrosse are same season. And we are in their outfield or they are in our field space, I guess, depending on how you look at that.
Mhm.
So looking at programming for that, we already have a conflict on all those fields as far as our priority goes. And then soccer is a year-round sport now. So you're going to have, with this layout, potential fields, but potential conflict as well. Hopefully our board and our committee meeting is, we'll find a good solution to how to handle that, but just food for thought. And then one comment on the parking is, where do we overflow park if we do exceed the parking? You cannot park on Serrano Parkway, I don't believe.
I don't know that it's red curb, but
I don't
yeah,
know if
that would
there's-
be rough.
And then you can't overfill into the neighborhoods because they're gated. And
No.
you can't park on Bass Lake.
No,
So
you
that's
can-
just one thought.
Yeah.
And to speak to the turnover, and I don't necessarily foresee tons of tournaments at this location because it, depending on the programming, but you have a team that arrives early, a team that's playing and a team that's leaving. So even though you may only be using the baseball fields, you could potentially have 2 to 3 teams for each field that you're programming, kind of staging and or there with cars and traffic. So just food for thought on the parking. Because Promontory, we can fill that parking lot with just 2 games, 3 games going on one field. Just food for thought on the parking.
Lighting is everyone loves lighting. Right? The ball players love lighting. We've been using portable pop-up lighting out there for quite some time at Selwood Field. There is language in the specific plan, which the specific plan, I'm not sure exactly how far up to Bass Lake it covers. I think it might extend beyond J Lot H.
It does.
But it actually speaks to fields with sport lighting. So it's in the specific plan. Will there be challenges? I guarantee there will be some sort of challenges on lighting. It's the world, the world we live in here. I don't know if we've done any additional outreach on our plan with lighting in that respect, other than the pop-up lighting we've been doing, which is, again, it's not sports field lighting. Big difference is we know here pop-up lights are like 12 feet. Modern lights are 50 feet tall. I have not seen the disclosure that Parker Development and their builders provide. I don't think I've seen their disclosures. I have seen copies of the disclosures that were given down in Heritage. And even though there were disclosures about you might be living next to a park and all the things that come with a park, and we had the plan with the lights, we've still been met with, as you know, tremendous challenge or discomfort by a group of residents down there. So that's something we can ask. We can see what disclosure was given, especially to the JLH, but you have the folks who have lived there for quite a while along the open space, extending away from Selwood Ball Field now. I'm sure there'll be challenges there, and to go back in time and what disclosures they had. I mean, we can ask, but I don't know if we'll get it. We'll see.
Yeah, I think you raised a handful of good points, and so when I was talking about parking is we should get a count and estimates. It feels super parking heavy, but if we look at, okay, we've got 2 teams of X number of players, parents, et cetera, on the field, and then I've got 2 coming in, 2 going, et cetera. All right, are we good? Because yeah, there's no overflow up there. We'll be stuck. And then, yeah, Kevin, piggybacking on her point with the lighting is my biggest heartburn over the last 2 years really has been Heritage. That park was approved before they broke ground on those homes. The lighting was planned and we still had to go to the damn grand jury because of that crap. And they're still like nonsense. So I'd go into this eyes wide open, probably assuming we're not going to be able to light it. I mean, because of what we dealt with something that was approved before they even broke ground on homes, let alone some of those Serrano, they don't back to this, but they back to the open area. And, you know, if you've lived in a home for 15 years with no light in the sky, we won't hear the end of it. And that's not our intent. I mean, our intent is to build to the plan. So, and I don't see any lighting stanchions in this plan, are there? None. Is lit?
Yeah, they all say lighted.
We got to quadruple check.
Well, in the application to the county for all this review and permitting, the environmental
Right.
review has included lighting ball fields.
Absolutely.
All right.
We've been putting all those pieces in place and deliberately lighting Selwood with the portable lights before the homes went in.
Yeah,
for
we've had the
JH.
portables out there
Before
forever.
they went in, we're like, get those portable lights out there. They need to see that they work and they're on.
Sure.
What about the diamonds there? Are those kind of programmed for little league softball? We actually already heard about those, the north and south diamonds. They look rather large. Are those to scale to kind of fit one or the other for baseball? Because I don't even know that we have anyone or Little League even uses what is called Pony League, or I don't know what the appropriate language is for basically adult, in other words, 90 foot bases.
Selwood has the
Versus-
90-foot base pinning, right? Jason, I'm looking at our sports supervisor in the back. How much of a demand is there, Jason?
I'd say light right now, but it's the only 90-foot field we have.
So you're
We
built,
don't have another one in the inventory. So theoretically, if Little League did expand and they did have the older age groups. it could- Sorry, I get-
people online can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so right now Selwood is our only 90-foot base length field. Our only it's full size baseball field. It's what the major league plays on.
Right.
There's not a high demand for that age group right now. I think right now a lot of those folks are going and playing travel ball. And I don't deal with a lot of them. But that's not to say that the program doesn't expand or evolve in the next 15, 20 years to have that interest. And right now Selwood is the only field that can technically take that level of play.
Right, and I think that it might be nice to kind of hear from Little League to see if in fact that is, or if they see a need for that, you know, in the future. Otherwise, it seems to me as space that's not really going to be used for all the right reasons. I mean, I'd be fine. I mean, if we're gonna, the CSD is gonna start an adult rec league, baseball league, that's something that might, you know, perk me up a little bit, but
Yeah, I don't know if
Uh,
there's interest in that, but that
but-
would be cool. The other thing I always advocate for is to have base pigs down the path so that you can kind of, depending on if you had a skinned in field or not, but you might be able to get multiple age groups out on a field like that.
Mm.
If you were able to have those different base lengths kind of added in at those different anchors.
mhm.
So it turns into kind of a multi-generational field within a one field, but it's an option possibly. Well, actually, I don't know. It might. I would rely on your experts here, but that's what I'd advocate.
Always good to get
Okay.
your input, Jason. You live in this world with the sports group, so thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Cool. All right. All right. Yep. Yes, sure, please.
The people online can't, they
can't
just
hear you.
hear us they see us doing
Yeah.
head nods.
Just curious on on the perimeter, is there any fencing at all for ball retention? I know baseball has like a home run fence, but lacrosse balls go flying, and are they gonna be ending up in natural area around, or will there be any fencing similar to Promontory?
Yeah, the head nod from the architect consultant.
Yeah,
Go
there'll
ahead.
there'll be fencing around the perimeter, just hard to see. Cause this is gonna be synthetic. So they want to have it protected, so make sure, cars aren't driving on it or, it's secured, kind of like Promontory, same thing. So this would be wrapped around. Yeah,
Is it all synthetic or just that lower?
That was a
That's
point I was going to
keeping
bring up, is our, the Bass Lake Working Group, which meets every couple months, the, active play group or whatever it's called, that Wayne Lowry is the chair of, has consistently given feedback that they'd like all fields to be synthetic. So that's kind of a decision point that we're actually kind of looking for here, because the concept is always listed the one that Paul just pointed out, the southeast one there, as synthetic and the other's natural. So we could always aim high and figure out where it goes, but what is your idea and direction?
One thought, so on the architect side of things, I mean, as far as designing it, I mean, can it be designed for either or dependent upon when we get to the point when we seek proposals, or does it have to be clearly kind of cut out in advance?
yeah, they're designed differently.
Okay,
So, yeah, and the costs are significantly different.
Yeah.
So ideally, and if it was synthetic, we'd probably even grade it flatter. So, even grades would change slightly and how you detail it. So ideally, we'd want to know, obviously you have a little time, but as we get into design drawings, what is this field? Or what are both of them, I guess, if they're all up for discussion, but right now in the master plan, this is synthetic and this was natural.
Okay.
And
That's what
so it's up for discussion where they want to go.
I see Roland.
And you really do.
He's got.
Roland Gale here. I'm with Promise Foundation and I'm on several of the working groups that are meeting relative to Bass Lake Regional Park. One question right now deals with the orientation of the baseball diamonds. I see that they're all oriented in different directions. And I know when fielding a ball, looking at the sun can be a problem. So how is that taken into consideration as we're designing these fields?
So the existing, so the far as the orientation goes, the original master plan, we didn't, modify significantly. I think it was more of how could they fit in the fields. So right now, north is up, east, west, so they're like, northeast orientation. Another one we flip goes north, south. So that's pretty ideal for this one here, as far as sun orientation and playability. So there aren't any that are really east and west facing. So
Again, I'm unfamiliar
yeah.
with it. It's not my,
Yeah.
I just was thinking that.
so actually the orientation is actually not bad. It's the way they're laid out. You're not gonna have, you're not gonna be looking at the sun on the east or the west side. So you're kind of off at an angle. So the orientation is good.
And I would like to address a couple more issues that deal with sun exposure. For example, the amphitheater that's being suggested as part of the nature center. What time of day would that being used? We're talking about early 9 o'clock through 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Are we talking about evenings and afternoons? Again, the folks that are presenting, what's their orientation to the sun, and then you have your audience. Again, what's theirs? So I think that has to be taken into consideration, is how it's going to be used and when it's going to be used. Again, relative to the nature center, I saw that they had caretaker facilities that were potentially in those areas. And I noticed one of them was right almost up on top of the dry pond and some of the really interesting natural areas. And again, I would think it'd be better to put that into some area that was not going to be considered a part of the nature study regions itself. And then relative to the parking area for the nature center, we discussed this, I think, at a meeting the other day that we were at, is about pushing it down as close to Bass Lake Road as possible. There are large expanses of relatively flat areas there. And again, keeping the parking areas away from any areas that are going to conceivably be used as part of nature study. And, or, you know, if we decide eventually to put in gardens or something of that nature on those big flat areas, we want to again preserve as much of that as we can. So again, something that needs to be considered. I don't know, you know, how many of your folks that in the planning side have actually been out on the site and looking at from the standpoint, because about 2/3 of this area is going to be preserved for a natural area. And so what their awareness is of what's already there. So again, just questions and things to, I hope we're being considered.
How you doing, Steve? With Foothill, just something to consider as a fields coordinator for softball. We would prefer, instead of 3 shared fields, just like Promontory Park, where we have basically 2 fields that you don't have to share. I don't know if that is possible in your design, but basically like tonight, if this was designed, either we wouldn't be practicing or soccer wouldn't be practicing, because we couldn't do it. So if there was a way to design this actually with 2 fields that we didn't have to share with lacrosse and soccer, it would be better actually for us. Because like I said, like tonight, we wouldn't be practicing because we couldn't hit onto the soccer players, or they couldn't be. So just something to think about. Thank you.
Shift those 2 fields to the north down towards the south and get rid of that diamond on the bottom. I don't know. All right.
Just like to add to Steve's point with the 2 fields, are any of those fields, do they have an outfield fence? Because if they're shared fields, how would you put a fence in? So they won't even have a fence, right? It won't be a home run fence. And then it is hard for any organization. I think all the other sports would agree that if I said, okay, I get the field on Monday, lacrosse gets it on Tuesday, soccer gets it on Wednesday, it's hard for your scheduling. It's really hard, once again, you know, just going back to girls softball, we have 1 field in all of El Dorado Hills. So I'd like it to be looked at to see if there's a field that we could have for girls softball. For if you look at all the girls sports, I mean, it was brought up about Little League. I have nothing against Little League, but they do have 33 fields and I have 1. I know there's more kids in Little League, but there is a thing called Title IX where it's supposed to have the same amount of fields for female sports as there is for male sports. So I think that should be seriously looked at. After 20 years of coming to these meetings, it's just kind of difficult for me to keep coming back year after year for 20 years and still only have 1 field for girls softball. Like I said, 32, 33 for Little League. It's a little lopsided. So maybe that can be looked at when we're structuring this park. 1 field would help out our program tremendously. Not that we can't share it or wouldn't give it up to baseball or whoever needed it. But if you look at all the fields and add them all up, baseball has a lot more than we do. So
That's why I asked that the north field there, as it being an adult specification field that no one really uses presently, and who knows what the need's going to be moving forward. Couldn't you just kind of put the smaller diamond?
yeah, I'm curious, what is
Up
the,
on top and then scoot the soccer fields down?
not
some
the
to
base
kind of-
path, but the fence line? How, is that a 200-foot field, 300-foot or 400-foot?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same question because that'll define whether it's a
So girls
softball.
softball field is 200 feet.
Exactly.
Adult slow pitch is 300, and then a full size baseball field would be 400.
Do we know what those radii are?
I think we showed all.
Oh, I can't.
That's a 400-foot fence on the large one. On the top, and then the one in the middle there is that a 200-foot? But it's still, like it said, the way that it's set up, there's no fence. It's on a soccer field. Both those fields are that's a soccer field right in the middle there.
Man,
So-
how would you, yeah, how would you do, if it were gonna be multi-use, synthetic for both? For both fields, you know, whether it be baseball or softball and soccer, the two multi-use fields being synthetic, how would that work?
I think you.
So if it's synthetic fields, when we, in our travels, we play all over the US with some of our travel teams. So on a full-size field, they have holes in the ground where we put up temporary fences.
Mhm.
So it can be used for
Mhm.
girls softball, slow pitch and baseball. Just by moving it, it's a temporary fence that you can put up.
Mhm.
Kind of like how
Um,
you have the striping, you have pinning or receivers in the ground that you can utilize. So.
That doesn't pose hazards for, you know,
No, they're,
soccer
Cover
and,
with the grass.
Gotcha, okay.
patches.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the fences that they put up are a breakaway fence.
Kind of like our-
Um,
we have valve boxes and everything out at Promontory and there's grass patches that
you
cover
never
them.
even
It's
know they're there.
perfect, but maybe not, but it's what you do when you have multi-use. Like we have multi-use out here, we put up temp fencing.
Yeah,
Yep, we have Tim out here in Community Park. On a synthetic field, how is the infield treated? Obviously.
we've seen both ways. Some of them are dirt infield, synthetic outfield. We've seen 100% synthetic. But when it's all synthetic, you can put the different markings on there, so it is easier to use it for
Okay,
multi-use.
but as far as the actual play, a synthetic infield is not a big problem.
I mean, there's fields out there, the Field of Dreams that we play at where it's all synthetic, so it is different than most fields that you play on, but as far as practicing, it's excellent because, I mean, we don't have to drag the field and that you're gonna get, you know, nice hops and stuff, less injuries. So, I mean, for practice, it's gonna be better. For games, even the little ones, I think they're gonna enjoy playing on it a lot better than playing up at Buckeye Elementary School with, you know what I mean? That's when the fields are at an angle.
Right.
So just less maintenance overall. And a lot of cities have gone to synthetic just to save on water. They are more expensive than putting a regular field in, but then they measured out the cost. And I think it took them, it was 10 to 20 years, I don't remember, to save the cost of the difference in putting the fields in.
Thank you.
Just easier to prep too. And when if you are holding tournaments and stuff there, tournament directors that are holding these tournaments like those fields, because they don't have to pay for that crew to do the field maintenance in between each game. You don't have the lock boxes out there. You're not paying for chalk and the people and the water, so forth. So it could save a lot of money in the long run. And they're very durable nowadays too. Kind of off topic, I brought up a couple times, but at Promontory tonight, I mean, our girls' ball hit the top of the solar. That and then onto the soccer field. So if
Nice.
there's a way to get that net extended, another extension, I think it'd save probably on the solar panels and protect the soccer players. We back our girls all the way up in practice. Like the mound is the home plate is up here and we back them up another 10 feet just so, and we try to hit to right field as much as we can, but it'd be nice just to, you know, get a full on practice in where we're not worried about having to, we put people on the other side of the fence and, you know, luckily nobody got hit, but I think the solar panels would be a cost that, you know, I don't want those to bust. So, but we do, I mean, we're on our kids. Like if you hit one out, you know, you got 10 push-ups because we don't want them going out because we don't want anybody to get hurt. And
I love hearing that she's
Yeah.
smacking the hell out of that ball. That's
First time
awesome.
here and
what's that?
She's smacking that ball. I love that. But one of the big things I keep on hearing, and I think is a common consistent challenge is when we're trying to program multi-use, we do need to come to that realization. And again, I'm girls volleyball dad volleyball is year round now. Soccer is year round. And so I hear you loud and clear as like the programming as it's laid out. You all, not me, because I'm done, are inheriting future headaches with the current layout. I think it's a cool plan, but it's going to come back to bite CSD because we can't program it properly and you can't plan for practices. It's like, oh, well, let's say we can do it Monday and maybe Friday because it's going to be painful. So anyway, that's what I'm certainly learning about, like what we did with field allocation and what we're seeing tonight and hearing from our community. So thanks for sticking out. I know we're talking about the refunds, but hopefully this was really informative for me. I know.
Yeah, it's better to discuss these matters now before it's built and it becomes.
Yeah, like that looks gorgeous, but I think I'm hearing scheduling issues already before it's even built.
I think lacrosse, right? You're thinking the same thing, right? You don't want to be on the same field of girls hitting balls and yeah.
With baseball and softball.
Put up and down and out the fence every practice.
Right.
And so, and then you want it up for the game, so basically you have a baseball field or you have a whole fence field. Can't really have both for the same season, very easy. Alan will see those things that stay up all season, right? So to take that down either every day, so we just practice right after them, that's a whole hour, right? It's a one setup. So you use an hour in between every and or every day, so you can take an hour share. So it's not ideal to be in anybody's.
And I think there's enough soccer and lacrosse that they would prefer to have their own field. It's not like there's going to be days that they can't book up, correct? You guys are hurting for fields just like us, but we'd rather go to 2 fields here instead of the 3 fields.
That's what I
And then so it can be
Yeah.
dedicated to each sport. Because there's plenty of kids I know in lacrosse and soccer, baseball, softball that will fill the field. So I don't know that you would need to have that multi-purpose field being worried about it not being used.
That was a great highlight. And I'm glad you just shared, rather go to 2 dedicated fields than 3 multi-use fields. So that'd be like one of my points of feedback, you know, as you guys are looking at the plan.
Yeah, and
Is
maybe
that fair? I don't mean to speak for both of you guys, but we're building the fields for you all, right? Not for me.
That's what I was kind of trying to get at, was trying to, I mean, again, if you have an adult sized field on the north side that no one's really using, why not just take the one that's on south, put it up where the existing adult, and then just slide those soccer fields down? And would that give it enough, would that be enough room to make it out? I know you lose that diamond on the south side, but
yeah, I'm not an architect and I don't know how that's all laid out, but usually when you put softball fields or baseball fields next to each other, you'd put those fields next to each other to save room because of the outfield. So you have a half a circle there. If you put those fields right next to each other, kind of like promontory is facing 2 different directions, right? You could save a lot of room if you just took that, and I believe that's a parking lot on this lower field. So say if that field came down and was right next to it, then you have a half a circle, a half a dome, which saves a lot of space. So in a multi-complex where we play tournaments, you actually have a full circle. And they have the restrooms right in the middle and the snack bar.
Yeah.
And it makes a full circle.
I love
So if
that
you just take
facility.
that field, I don't know if there's a way to do that, but if that's something you could look at, then you have both complexes, fields next to each other. Say you did have 2 baseball teams or 2 softball teams, they're next to each other, practicing, same type of parents. And then you put the squared off stuff next to each other, fields. I think you could create some better room out of that. But I don't know what the structure is, the land lay and stuff. That's just me looking at a flat piece of paper. So
We said we only had to move like 1 million cubic yards.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, well.
right. Right. It's good input.
this is awesome.
So if I could kind of like summarize some of the input and just get your head nods or something, that separating the fields to make it programmable and friendlier, I guess, is a definite point of feedback. This design, as you're seeing, has been explained, is based upon the concept that was developed over a couple of years. So that's where it started from. Maximize as many fields as possible, basically. Let's try to get as many multi-use fields. That was the plan and the concept, I think. And so that's where this got to. So I mean, we're definitely open to making it better and more programmable and easier to use for multiple sports. And if it takes, sort of eliminating one sort of multi-use field space to separate the, 2 soccer fields and 2 diamonds, that's a great idea, I guess. So is that kind of?
I think originally it's a great idea concept if you have a small program in a small town, not talking about all the sports programs that come to all the meetings and we don't have fields. So I think we can book them up So I think looking at it differently without doing a multi-use, but there's nothing wrong with what you guys tried to do. It's just, I think we have enough sports that we could fill them 7 days a week with having a dedicated field.
Can I butt
So,
in
thanks.
for just
Yep.
a second?
Yeah, thank
You can hang out because we're talking the same thing. I'm curious. Selwood Field is, the diamond is shown up there where it was. Couldn't we move, do we need to keep that up there? Is that, you see, I don't know if you see what I'm getting at is, do we anticipate the Selwood Field would just remain where it was? Or could we take it down and move other things up into it?
It's all movable.
Yeah, I think the overall program was kind of based on that there was an existing field there and let's build out from that. And that was just the original conceptual idea. And that's just how folks at the time saw it, but it definitely can be moved because as has been explained earlier related to the cut and fill and grading considerations, that field as designed now would need to be significantly graded down anyway. So it's going to be kind of cut out. So another arrangement is definitely possible.
Maybe I just wonder if there's another way. I mean, I know we've conducted public outreach sessions before, but is there some way that we can do another one at some point to kind of get more feedback and more, input on what we can do, what it should look like? How
Or
can
at
we
least
push
take
How
it
can
to
we
the,
push it out there so that more people can be involved and we can hear from others and kind of use that to kind of really move things around.
or the sports groups meeting that's taking place, like putting this in front of some of our experts when they're all together in a room.
Right,
to even
exactly.
brainstorm.
Right. Mark was just going to make that point, I think. Yeah.
Were you?
Yeah.
I
And
sent out a request to see what availability is 22nd. And I mean, we can share the current plans and what the different options are to see what the feedback can be.
right, because this is the last point to get any kind of feedback, of course,
It's kind of
because we're
yeah.
getting final master plan. So
And again, it's for our application. We need to put in what we may build and then the refinement of it could change. We don't want to omit something that we might want to build later on this because then we'd have to go back and get our use permit updated. That's kind of key element. I mean, if we know we have a certain canvas or place to paint in fields, whatever they may be, yeah. We don't want to box it in with arbitrary lines, but we've done that here. I mean, it's something, but it's great input that I'm glad we brought this forward for some conversation and input tonight. And yeah, so now we can work on a few things with the architect.
Yeah, and I think what everybody said, I mean, just let everybody know where we came from. We didn't totally wholesale this whole design that was done, years and years of work. So, but if it's, if it's up for discussion, sure, the things can move around. I mean, it's all in plan right now. So now's it, like Jess said, if it's really, we have better ideas, more input, what it should be, now's the time to do it before we get too much further.
Yeah.
The more the current one is more to scale. This was very high level conceptual, just here's a field, here's a field, here's a field. What do you think?
Yeah. So this is a little bit more of a realistic layout, how it actually be and how much space we have and.
Yeah, it seems.
200. And just like everybody said, if this is just this whole area, it could get totally reshuffled. And think about the program, think about the adjacencies, what fields we want to do and maybe stand alone like promontory and overlap or, I just think just hearing what I'm seeing, I think we just need a fresh look at it and make sure that everybody's good when we move forward that, and I don't know, Jeff, is there I mean, is there, yeah, can we do something on the other side? Is that impossible? Yeah,
Well, I think if I have to dig into the history of what that property was, there was a county plan for a lot of fields over there that had a lot of opponents. So I don't really think I want to
push back.
open that back up again. And the vision for the park is that's the natural area,
Yeah,
active areas on the west.
we're kind of stuck in this zone. As far as fields.
I think what's potentially, well, it got really loud. The user group meeting, bringing this sort of close to final plan and with some questions, pointed questions on what folks would prefer is a good idea, like in 2 weeks or whenever, even if it's in 3 or 4 weeks, you know, like, or I don't want to get that late, but I'd rather get it right and get what works instead of just moving ahead.
Yeah, that's right here.
So there was a way to move the bottom field up.
That's exactly what I've been trying to say the whole time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Slide the soccer fields all the way up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right hand side of that. You could actually, even though the dice go a certain way, you can still turn that field.
Sure. Yeah.
Keep up safety.
Yeah, more traditional. Yeah. Yeah, definitely work with it.
Oh. Very good. All right,
Sorry, Jeff. Sorry, Paul.
sounds good. Great discussion. Thanks for.
It's much better to have feedback than none. And so that's actually really good.
But
I would have hated there had been no questions and it was just 10 minutes of a topic. That would not have been a
yeah,
good
this is
thing.
an important, this is an important one for sure. All right, great. Well, thanks everyone for coming out and participating. We'll go ahead and close out the meeting and adjourn.